Wildlife. Wildlife. It's a tie. I said what I said. It's a tie. Hear me out. Hear me out. Now, Kenya got the big five: the lions, the elephants, the buffaloes, the leopards, the white rhinos, and the wildebeest migration. Uganda don't have that. However, Uganda has the big five, and they also got gorillas. Kenya ain't got that. Welcome to BLAXIT to Africa. My name is Tadre Delore Moignet, a California native living my best life in Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you for coming along for the ride. I hope that you are informed, entertained, and inspired to BLAXIT to Africa. Today's topic is Kenya versus Uganda. Now, those of you Kenyans, you might be thinking, aha, that's easy. We gonna win. I'm gonna tell you, I was surprised, and you will be too. Before I get into it, I have noticed that the average watch time of my videos is significantly shorter than the length of the videos. So I don't want to lose your attention. I'm going to do my best to move as quickly as possible. We may not be able to get through all of this. That just means there'll have to be a round two. Right now, round one, Kenya versus Uganda. All right, so we are judging this based on 11 different metrics: infrastructure, spirituality, quality of life, medical care, senior care, fitness, crime, economics, wildlife, art, culture, and entertainment, and education. Per usual, Auntie has her notes right here just to stay on track. And now you know how we're doing this. Before we get into the metrics, let me just state some facts for those who do not know. I lived in Uganda off and on for about 2 years. I have lived in Kenya off and on for about 3 years. The total Ugandan population is 46 million, 1.8 million people in Kampala. In Kenya, the total population is 56.5 million, with 5.5 million people living in Nairobi. The Ugandan GDP is 53 billion US dollars. The Kenyan GDP is 104 billion US dollars. I just want you to see the differential. The Ugandan GDP per capita, which is an economy's production per person, is approximately 1,000 US dollars. The Kenyan GDP per capita is between around 5,000 to 7,000 US dollars. And Kenya is significantly larger geographically speaking than Uganda. Let's start with the first metric: culture, art, and entertainment. Okay, I want to start with food because I'm a foodie. You know, Kenya is really known for its nyama choma, which is basically barbecue. And then you've got some other cuisines, mukimo, and there's so much that, in my personal opinion, is very unexciting. Just, however, the saving grace for Kenyan cuisine, in my personal opinion, obviously this is subjective, and I'm so scared to go down this list because I know Kenyans love their country and Kenyans love their cuisine, but I'm just going to give you my perspective as an African American woman who is from Southern California. Kenya's saving grace in terms of cuisine is the Swahili cuisine that has spice and just very interesting textures and cultures interwoven. And for those of you who don't know, the Swahili are really a I would say, a multi-racial, multi-ethnic people who primarily reside along the coast of East Africa. And they have Arabic and Indian and Persian and European and Bantu, sub-Saharan African influences in their cuisine. That to me is the most interesting. However, right next door in Uganda, we've got luombo. And luombo is my favorite dish within Ugandan cuisine. And it's basically like a nice soupy stew that's wrapped in banana leaf. And you can get it with groundnut sauce, chicken, beef. I think they even do it with fish. And it's flavorful, it's rich. I love it. And even just the unpacking of it when they reveal, it's just like, oh my gosh. Ugandans also do an amazing deep fried whole fish that you eat with your fingers, and there's this beautiful salad on top. And by salad, I mean chopped avocados, onions, tomatoes. You get a whole fish that you can get it at Gaba Market. You share it with your friends, and it's just delicious. Of course, they do fried fish here in Kenya. We have this, we have the lake region. It's not as crispy. It's not as flavorful. So I'm gonna say for food taste goes to Uganda. Food quality goes to Uganda. The way food just spoils so quickly in Uganda, I understand there's less GMO. Now, Kenyans have more people to feed, so you would think there's more GMO. There is. It's more GMO, more chemicals in the food. Monsanto is here. I would say food quality, Uganda has got it. Now, where Kenya is winning in terms of food is variety. You do have different types of cuisines, international cuisines in Uganda, but in Kenya, there's just so much more variety. Let's talk about beauty services. I think it's a tie. There's more variety of beauty services in Kenya. However, Uganda does a much better job in focusing on the clients. The customer care is typically better in terms of the beauty services from low end to high end. Whereas I find in Kenya, in order to get just this really exclusive feeling and service in beauty care, you have to be paying like upper mid to upper in order to get the level of the standard that you're accustomed to. Friendliness, Kenyans, y'all already know. Y'all already know. Uganda wins. At one point, I think Uganda was ranked the friendliest nation in the world. Ugandans are so kind and so polite. Even in their capital city of Kampala, Nairobians, oh my God, what I have experienced from Nairobians has really just made me want to move. I mean, the way grown ass men shoulder bump me without an apology, without an excuse me on the street. And when I say something, they're just like, and what's your problem? And they keep going. Listen, fashion, Uganda wins. Uganda wins in fashion. Ugandans really understand color and texture and shape. They really love to dress. I mean, in the villages, in the cities, like Ugandans, I believe, just have a better handle on fashion. And the shopping for new clothing in Uganda is actually much better, in my opinion, than shopping for new clothing in Kenya, because it's just more interesting to me. Whereas there's obviously more places to shop in Kenya, Nairobi specifically. However, I don't find the assortments to be as interesting. There's a seamstress, a tailor, damn near on every block in Kampala, Uganda. Like every neighborhood has a tailor, has a seamstress. And that just lets you know how important looking good is in that culture. In shopping, Kenya wins in terms of just options, variety. There's more big chains here to do your shopping. There's a Woolworths, there's Mr. Price, there's Max. Where else in terms of like big stores? However, I just find it to be very unexciting, monotonous art. I would say that it's a tie in terms of fine art. Obviously, Kenya is a bigger market, so it's going to have more artists. In terms of the quality of the art that is coming out of Uganda versus Kenya, it's a tie. Like, Ugandan artists are just as proficient, as just as serious, as just as talented as Kenyan artists. It's a tie. Crafts, I'm going to say Kenya wins. Okay. And when you come to East Africa, it's Kenyan crafts, just it's ubiquitous throughout East Africa. You find that um, traders, entrepreneurs throughout East Africa will come to Kenya to get Kenyan crafts and take them back to their countries and sell them locally, sell them internationally. Um, Things to do, Kenya wins. There's just so much more to do here. We have a skating rink, we have bowling alleys, we have these huge playpens for kids, we have paintball. There's just a lot to do here. Outdoor activities, Kenya wins. Kenya wins because we've got oceans, mountains, urban green spaces, which Kampala totally is lacking. Richness of culture, I think, is a tie. Conservative, those of us who are coming from very liberal countries, relatively speaking, coming from Europe, coming from the Americas, Kenya is less conservative than Uganda. And for somebody that's accustomed to pretty much doing what I want when I want, wearing whatever the hell I want, being half naked, walking around in Los Angeles, um, moving to a country that is less conservative is more advantageous for me. However, I will say that at night, you can wear whatever the hell you want, but during the daytime, so in terms of culture, art, and entertainment, we have a tie. Infrastructure. I'm laughing because East Africans already know roads, electricity, water. Uh, yeah, Kenya wins. The roads are better in Kenya. Electricity is much more steady in Kenya. That also means for those of y'all who's working from home, relying on Wi-Fi, you will want to be in a place where the electricity is much more stable. Water. Now, this is what's interesting to me. 2022, 18.68% of Ugandans had access to clean drinking water. Okay. Kenya, 60% of Kenyans have access to safe drinking water. Definitely something to consider. Now, when I lived in Uganda, I had a water filter and I was fine. I would also say, like when we talk about water hardness, the water is definitely a lot harder in Nairobi than it is in Kampala, Uganda. Technology, Kenya is definitely leading. We do have a lot of technological firms here. From my cousin who works for Google, Google is on its way here. Multinational tech firms are here. Lots of fintech firms are here. Looking at Uganda, there's also quite a few fintech firms there as well. However, Kenya is just a larger market, so there's going to be much more firms here. Kenya is the technological hub for East Africa. I don't want to miss Uganda or step over Uganda because I've gone to a tech innovation conference in Kampala and was actually invited to sit on a panel for women entrepreneurs while I was there. And I was able to meet young people who was really doing a thug thizzle in Kampala. They just needed the funding. They needed the backing. I met these young guys that had developed an app that would give every Ugandan household an address. That currently is not the case. You can imagine how that affects deliveries, etc. Location, GPS. They had developed this and they had not received funding. I also met some brothers who developed an app that would allow consumers to be able to go into a pharmacy and detect fake drugs. Why is this important? Because people were buying drugs from pharmacies and dying from these fake drugs that were on the market. All they needed was financial backing. However, with all of that being said, Kenya still wins. Transportation, Kenya wins. The transportation networks, public transportation, private transportation, just much more effective here, and there is an abundance of that here. Walkability, Kenya wins. It's really not part of the culture in, I'm gonna say in Africa. I'm gonna say generally speaking in Africa, it's not part of the culture for people to just go for walks after dinner or, in between calls or whatever it is. However, for those of us in Europe and in the Americas, it is. It definitely is. And something I never thought of in the US is life without sidewalks. And in Africa, there are more places without sidewalks than with. I would say Kenya, specifically in Nairobi, there's much more sidewalks and you feel much safer as a pedestrian when you are able to go for a walk and not have to amble in the dust and navigate between oncoming traffic and a gutter. So in terms of infrastructure, Kenya is winning. All right. Economics. Y'all are going to be surprised with this one. Let's go through it. Employment opportunities. That one for me is a toss-up, and you'll find out why. Business opportunities. Toss-up, and I will explain why. Business ethics for small to medium enterprises. Ugandans win. SMEs, I find that Ugandans, when it comes to business ethics, when it comes to customer care, just better. Unemployment rates. Whew, wow. Uganda wins. I was shocked. I was really shocked because from the outside, well, actually just from living there, it seems like Ugandans' informal economy, job market, is much more expansive. And that to me led me to think that the unemployment rates in the formal sector must have been higher. However, just looking at statistics that are reported, and I will admit that every country and every org reports and measures differently. However, the unemployment rates for Uganda, let me see, is 2.8%. Kenya is 5.6%. In terms of youth, which is like 14 to, I want to say, early 20s, 4.5%. Unemployment rates for youth in Kenya, 12.15%. Baby, now we understand why there were protests in the streets and it was being led by Gen Z. How is it you got all this education and you can't get a job? Uganda wins in terms of unemployment rates. Cost of living, Uganda wins. Y'all already know this. It's much cheaper to live in Uganda. As a single person in Kenya, you need about $1,000 per month. Family of 4, $2,500 per month. In Uganda, as a single person, you need about $894 per month. I'm sure this is Kampala. And this is like, this stat is from expatistan.com, and it's very much user generated. So, I imagine that there are lots of Europeans and also white Americans, diplomats who are generating these numbers, because I was not paying $894 per month. No, no, no. $200, $300 in a decent area in Kampala is fine. Nonetheless, we're going to go with these stats. Family of 4 in Uganda, $1,982. Family of 4 is what they're saying you need to live comfortably in a nice area in Uganda. Now, when they break it down by city, it's a little bit more, but not a whole lot. So for those of you who are really thinking about where can I move in Africa? How can I support my family? Go to expatistan.com. Look at their stats. You can plug in cities, you can plug in countries, and you can see that the cost is very, very little, comparatively speaking. Okay? Housing costs. Uganda wins. Okay? Kampala, you're going to pay between $319 to $800 per month for housing. All right? That's a little high. In Nairobi, you finna pay $500 to $1,000 per month in housing. And let me also add that in East Africa, when you rent a place that's non-furnished, not only do you have to furnish it, you have to buy the curtains, you gotta buy I don't even know, you gotta buy the dishwasher. If there's space for a dishwasher, you gotta buy the dishwasher, the washing machine, the dryer, the refrigerator, did I say curtains? The light fixture covers. In the US, all of that is supplied for you. That's one thing that you have to consider. What else can I say about housing costs? Now, in my personal experience, renting in Nairobi is cheaper than renting in Kampala when we're talking about quality. For example, I pay 70,000 Kenyan shillings per month for my flat. Is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. And depending on the market fluctuations, that could be anywhere from $400 to $600. And this is in a nice neighborhood. I am near the State House, walkable, urban green space, garden, swimming pool. We're supposed to be getting a gym. We ain't got one yet, but I got 2 gyms on my block, right? Now, I find that if you rent in a nice neighborhood in Kampala, you're gonna be paying upwards of $1,000 per month. And more than likely, you're not gonna have the amenities that you think you should have. A lot of these places ain't got no pool, they ain't got no gym. You walk out the door and it's goats. Personally, I actually think it's very quaint to see livestock in the city. My Ugandan friends are low-key embarrassed by that. However, I'm like, it's cute. I'm a city girl. I didn't grow up seeing livestock nowhere. We had to go to the zoo if we wanted to see goats and cows. So it doesn't bother me. However, if you gonna charge me $1,200 for an apartment and all I got is a parking space and maybe a small cafe downstairs, no pool, no sauna, no jacuzzi, no gym, and I step out on the street and the street is dusty, baby, it's a dirt road, that's so common. And it's goats and cows moving about. My question is, what am I paying for? What am I paying for? So that's my personal experience versus the statistics. Food costs, y'all already know. Uganda food costs are much, much cheaper. However, in terms of variety, Kenya just has more of that. There's certain things that we're accustomed to eating in the global north, for lack of a better term. And many times you'll have to go to a farmer's market in Kampala that is really set up specifically for foreigners in order to get these things like tortillas, good cheeses, boulets, yeah. And it's priced for foreigners, even though it may not even be expensive to manufacture. Whereas in Kenya, your average supermarket is going to have all of these things, and you'll have a variety of brands to choose from. The middle class, Kenya's winning. All right, Uganda's middle class, about 33% of the population is middle class. But oh my gosh, like the way middle class is defined, an upper middle class group is defined as a group that spends 10 to 20 US dollars per day. Yeah. Kenya's middle class is larger at 45% of the population with an annual income of $4,000 or more. Okay? So, based on everything that I discussed in economics, Uganda's winning. That's a surprise. That was a surprise for me as well. But just based on these metrics and based on what a person who may be thinking about moving to East Africa should consider, Uganda is winning in terms of economics. Wildlife. Wildlife. It's a tie. I said what I said. It's a tie. Hear me out. Hear me out. Now, Kenya got the big five. The lions, the elephants, the buffaloes, the leopards, the white rhinos, and the wildebeest migration. Uganda don't have that. However, Uganda has the big five, and they also got gorillas. Kenya ain't got that. You weren't expecting that. You weren't expecting that, though. Now, we all know Kenya's bigger. Y'all got more national parks, all of that. But if I just want to see lions, elephants, buffaloes, leopards, and white rhinos, hey, I can either go to Kenya or Uganda. The wildebeest migration, I've never wanted to see that. People come from all over the world to see that. The gorillas. Now, I have done a gorilla trek in Uganda. I highly recommend it. Like, it's a tie. Spirituality. Spirituality. Kenya's winning. I say this as an outsider. I say this as someone who did not grow up here, that does not have direct ancestry here. The reason why I say Kenya is winning because spirituality has become commercialized, meaning that it's easier for those of us to access. If we want to get into meditation, if we want to get into plant medicine so that we can transcend, if we want to do, there's so many. You want to buy your sage and you want to get your crystals and you want to do your retreats. You want to get into your yoga practice, which is also spiritual. You know, all of that is here. And then there's this, of course, there's this is what our, the things that our ancestors practiced that are not above ground, that people don't like to talk about, that everybody doesn't have access to because it's deemed witchcraft and evil, and people definitely want to protect their traditional practices. There's definitely lots of that in Uganda. I just don't have access to it. So now I'm someone who has a spiritual practice in, let's say, Canada, and I want to continue these practices and commune with other people in East Africa. It's going to be a lot easier for me to do that in Kenya. It was so easy for me to tap into a spiritual community in Kenya. We have a website called Conscious Kenya where you can find practitioners, where you can find professionals, you can find your community. Like, it's bomb. All right, y'all, I'm gonna have to wrap it up because it's gonna get a little bit long. So I covered the first 5 out of 11 metrics in Kenya versus Uganda, round 1. And Kenya's winning Kenya's winning in spirituality, in infrastructure. Uganda is winning in economics, and it's a tie in wildlife, arts, culture, and entertainment. Please tune in on round 2, where I cover fitness, senior care, medical care, quality of life, education, and crime. Thank you for joining me on this episode of BLAXIT to Africa. If you like what you heard, please share, subscribe, and leave a review. May you thrive. May you be inspired. May you move with love and intention. Until next time.